Welcome to Shoot the Breeze, a podcast that celebrates the messiness of life, relationships, and Christianity. It's creatively titled because it will be just us shooting the breeze, sometimes with guests, while occasionally saying something important. We hope you enjoy. Hi, Phil.
Nathan.
We're back.
We are. And you've changed setup once again.
I get bored. Yeah. Lacey and I have talked about this, how I make changes to things that I have control over because there's so many things in my life I can't control.
Sure.
That have to be, and so
like Lacey.
Like Lacey, I can't control her.
Yeah.
Nope. Not going to control that.
I believe they call that feng shui, right?
Yeah, well, and so it's like I'll change how I sleep. I'll sleep on my head on one side of the bed, but then I'll spend 3 nights with the head on the other side of the bed because I have the fan on one side.
Oh, you're talking about switching feet and head?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll do that.
I get that.
I'll change up my office, but Lacey has this theory. She goes, I think it's because there's so many things in your life that you have to be disciplined in. That you will find any excuse in any area to change. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's totally it.
No, yeah, I mean, it's... So when I was a kid, spent a lot of time with my grandparents and my mom's parents. And my grandmother, we always just called her a hypochondriac, and we all feel bad now because she was incredibly sick. She was allergic to everything, and ultimately Alzheimer's, dementia affected her, and it was early onset, in her late 60s, early 70s is when it started showing up, but nobody knew what it was then.
Is that early onset?
Yeah. Yeah, Alzheimer's is usually a much later stage.
Yeah, but she's 70s, 80s?
Well, she lived to be in her 90s.
No, early onset is 30.
Okay.
Right?
It is most common with people in their middle to late 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. So early onset, because it is an end of life condition in most cases.
Okay.
I'm not a doctor. I'm probably wrong. In my experience, I have seen it the most in people in their 80s. Anyway, but
yeah.
She would clean whenever she was upset.
Okay.
And I don't mean like we'd be doing blinds. Fan blades.
The dust.
Yeah. And she do you know what a rainbow vacuum is?
No.
It's like the Porsche 911 of vacuums.
Is that the kind with the tube that you have to lug or move it around?
Yeah. Now they're pretty advanced.
Yeah.
They're almost super lightweight. It doubles as an air purifier when you don't want to vacuum.
Okay.
Has a grooming attachment that comes with it.
Nice.
But it's not like a buy a piece. You buy it all. It's like $4,000. It's only sold by salesmen.
Really?
Lifetime warranty.
Okay.
There's a repair place in Austin for it. It's been there since the 60s.
A Rainbow
Vacuum Company. And when we got a little, when she was working and I was working and we were both making good money, I called him. And I was like, let's do this. We've arrived. And she's like, we're not getting that. I was like, you don't understand. This is a status symbol. Other people are out there buying new trucks. I'm getting a rainbow vacuum.
I feel like your life is a 1980s movie or a 1980s sitcom.
I wish. So much more.
Okay, yeah. I've seen these. They're
but they use water. So when the dirt comes in, it dumps into a water tank so it doesn't make dust.
Right.
So she was hypoallergenic, as it turns out. And so as a kid, I would lug that thing around her trailer house. And they're great for everything but a trailer house. Because they're so big.
Yeah.
Especially the ones from the late 80s that she had. But yeah, so when I get really uptight, and I mean really stressed out, really upset about something, I either go build something or I clean. That's how I exert control over the situation.
Okay, hold on, I'm looking up as if I wanted to buy one. I'm looking up, find a distributor, United States, Texas.
I think the nearest one's in Dallas.
They have authorized sales. The only one is Spring, Texas.
Oh, it's Houston area.
Okay. Yeah, there was a few. Louisville, Texas. Louisville, Texas. Okay.
I don't know where that's at.
Durant. Longview.
Longview's up by Dallas.
Katy.
Houston.
Okay. Well, there. All right. There's like 4.
Yeah. No, there.
This last Christmas break, I kind of vowed to myself I wouldn't open my computer. I opened my phone a lot, but I wouldn't open my computer.
For what?
Work. Because here's what I do to relax.
Okay. Oh, you mean over the Christmas break?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant like that was your fast. I was like, hey, that's kind of your job. That's weird. Why would you? I'm only going to use my phone for work.
Yeah, no. So over the break,
Gotcha.
It was like 2 weeks where, family was in, and I'm like, okay, some things that I do to decompress is I play with our website. Like I like to work back end and
Yeah, we've talked about this.
Okay, yeah.
Move things around, hide them, make it confusing. I got it.
Exactly. Thank you. I change things, right? So I was like, okay, I'm not opening my computer. There's projects around the house that I want to do. I built a duck patio for their pool.
Nice.
So like working with my hands. And so that's what I do to decompress is like either working with my hands or like problem solving a different way, So anyways, like cleaning, I get that. And like I'll organize my room, I'll organize my what is the cabinet called? I don't have a closet. I have a
Armoire?
Armoire. I have an armoire. If you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh, he has an armoire," it's not as fancy as you think it is. Basically, Lacey stole the closet, and I got.
Our master has 3 closets.
Are you serious?
And they're both like the typical normal closets, one on each side, his and hers. And then I think when they remodeled it, basically they were like, this was part of the bathroom, but we don't need it.
Oh,
They
okay.
put in a shower.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was always a closet. I don't know. But it's this really narrow, not quite 4 feet wide area.
More like a bathroom closet kind of an idea.
Yeah, maybe.
Like a towel.
Like
closet.
literally, it's
linen
it
closet.
is the size of a single person shower stall.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's what it is right next to it.
Linen closet.
Yeah, it's like a linen closet.
Yeah. Okay.
But there was no shelves in it. Like it was set up for clothing.
Oh, okay.
And so that became the armory.
Okay. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So, anyways,
I'm obsessed with like accordion doors.
Okay.
For closets.
Okay. 1980s.
Well, it's the space. Because what we had was the clunky 1970s. Like only half the closet was visible at a time.
Oh yeah.
And so
I don't like that either.
We're getting rid of this.
I like pocket doors.
And then I love pocket doors. I have a plan.
Yeah.
To fix that giant opening from the upper living room to the lower living room.
Yeah. Yeah.
By putting in 2 pocket doors so that you can close it off.
Yeah, buddy.
And then when you want the people there, you open it up. But somebody doesn't trust me to finish it.
I mean,
you know what? Don't even. Don't even. All right.
I think
She picked the house out.
We've reached the point in the friendship where we can totally blackmail each other.
I told her that house was going to be like a money pit.
Yeah,
it wasn't level.
Have you seen Money Pit?
I have.
Okay,
years ago.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah. Or what is it? Oh, brother, right there. I was like 2 weeks from everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like sometimes. I am 2 weeks from everywhere. So what are we talking about?
I don't know. I gave it to you. I was like,
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about?
So I did present you with the idea of I read your book exhaustively.
You said you've read it twice now.
I read it like most of the way through the first time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the lie. Halfway through.
Okay.
I had not done the Freedom book when I started it.
Okay.
And I resented that to read your book, you wanted me to do the Freedom book within the book.
Oh, yeah.
Like the U book is talking to me about doing the Freedom book. And I'm like, I don't need this.
Like all the way through.
I don't need this everywhere I go. And I really resented the fact that you wrote a book just to sell your ministry at the time.
Yeah.
Right? But it is a good book.
I'll tell you, it's not a marketing scheme. Let me tell you what.
It should have been. You know, if you just,
It's not
if
lucrative.
you just like, I mean, I'm not advocating for him, but if you just looked at Stephen Furtick that long, you'd be more successful.
If I looked at him,
Just pay attention to what he does.
it's all social media based, and I can't stand social media.
I get it. Every once in a while, I'm like, I'm gonna go ask Nate what kind of camera I should get. I'm gonna start doing like woodworking videos on YouTube.
Dude, you'd be phenomenal.
And then I'm like, then I gotta watch what I say. And
no, you don't. It depends on what.
well, I do. I do.
No, it like social media. I'm like, I had to. It was one of those seasons where I wanted to be, you know, the analytics and popular and all that, and that was killed inside of my soul.
You know what's funny is when you look at the videos, there's a guy, the Roman helmet guy. He has some really interesting videos.
Yeah.
Super not on our side of things religiously.
Sure. Right.
But I looked at his tags, and he has like 1 billion tags on there, and most of them have nothing to do with what he's talking about. But it's like, you know, like Princess Diana, Disney.
Yeah.
You know, and it's designed to make it pop up into anybody's search field. And I'm like,
it's clickbait.
This is why.
No, that's clickbait.
I can't find what I want on YouTube. This is why.
Because it's clickbait. And so so first of all, the thing that needed to die inside of me was like the popularity thing. Yeah. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a podcast for distributing our resources, just an ongoing catalog of, hey, we're like we did, Lacey and I did a series on forgiveness. Like,
it was good. I listened to it.
Just an ongoing catalog of what we do, you know?
I don't take this the wrong way. But it is kind of freeing knowing, like, I don't have millions of people scrutinizing me right now. I would be more uncomfortable, certainly, if I thought that we were getting, like, high circulation somewhere.
I did have someone ask if some episodes could be removed for a season. Sure. In light of what they spoke on, who they are, and where they were at.
Yeah.
I was like...
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, so I did.
But, so I read your book.
Yes.
And most of the way through, put it down, probably about a year. And then I recently, within the last 6 months, I listened to another podcast. Okay. It was kind of a biography. He was reviewing a guy's book. And I really liked the way he did it. And I was like, that would be a better way to tell your story than the way you've not, I mean... Nothing wrong with what you've been.
No, I know what you're saying.
It would be more interesting.
Yeah.
As opposed to Lacey and you talking about it selectively.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
different platforms.
Let's take a linear approach to it.
Yeah.
And kind of live in those moments.
Okay.
And the two things that I think are possible is one, you may locate some unresolved issues. But two, putting yourself back in there, not from that resolution perspective, you know, like this is where I was, but this is where I am. I don't know where you are yet.
Yeah.
Where were you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when we get to the resolution, do you have a more expressive, more specific way to share what you've done walking with the Holy Spirit?
It's interesting. So you and I have been trying to schedule this podcast for a while. Yeah. And over the break, more stuff came to light because it was my brothers, it was my mom. Right. So more stuff came to light where I was like, oh my goodness, that's right. That did happen. Well, it's funny how your brain just blocks it out.
And I told you, I called my mom to tell her I talked about my dad in a podcast.
Yeah.
Just on the off chance that she looked at the rest of your podcast after she finished the Revelation stuff. And she's, I'm not going to listen to it. I don't want to relive some of that.
Sure.
And totally good. But things that came out of that, much like you said, things that I didn't know, relating to my dad's childhood. And once again, it adds that perspective of, I could have had it worse.
Sure.
But also the treatment of another sibling, hearing some of my mom's perspective that she didn't even understand his response to that specific person. And she never got an answer as to why he was that way. And it was something that was out of character, specifically when dealing with that particular sibling. And it's one of those mysteries that you kind of sit back and you go, I wonder why.
Yeah. Yep.
What triggered that, and then then you examine your own children and how you're treating them, and you're like, okay, do I lean more heavily on one child because of this personality trait, or because of this appearance, or because of this time in my life? And it's just that grace and awareness, and so like you said, it was interesting the things that come up when you start reliving.
Lacey has, I like the way she says it. She goes, you will become the accumulation of your parents' unresolved issues.
Yeah.
And like with parenting, I think you will parent in light of those your parents' unresolved issues. And so it's interesting. And I think that's why as parents, you have to resolve past things. Otherwise, your kid is going to do something and you know the right thing to do, but you'll go, that's what my parents did with me and they did it wrong, so I'm not going to do it wrong.
Yeah, the overcorrection is sometimes worse.
Right.
Or situationally it's worse.
Yeah.
So, in line of that...
you're going to interview me?
You want to trade?
Yeah, let's trade. Should we trade headphones? Or
do you have like an ear disease I don't know about?
No, it's just, will these fit on your head?
Yeah, I'll get over it. It's just one episode.
Here, just pop it up.
It's not going to pop or anything?
No, just pop it. There you go. Yeah.
And
then we'll switch. All right, cool.
You should edit out me standing up.
The funny thing is I can't hear you until I... There we go.
Okay. You want that pillow I just threw down?
Oh, yeah. My feet are...
All right, this is a terrible chair, by the way.
It fits me.
Yeah, that's really terrible. How did you turn the TV on? I was supposed to ask you to turn the TV on.
Oh, yeah. Here.
All right. All right. Y'all are going to see my amazing drawing skills this evening.
All right.
So those of you watching, all four of you.
You know what? You got to make it sound like we're like millions of people.
This is the book. I'm new to this, folks.
Yeah.
UnLove by Nathan Steele. So I think I told you one of these showed up at my office.
Yeah.
And there's this really super nice inscription to one of the guys I works with's ex-wife. And somebody came here, met you, and was like, oh, this is perfect for what she's going through. I'm going to get her a copy.
Yeah.
And I think he actually brought, when we were still doing Cultivate on Sundays, he brought her.
Okay.
And that was cool. And so there's this beautiful inscription, about how this is going to help her. And she gave it to her ex-husband. She was like, you need this more than me.
Have I told you that I knew I made it when I found it in a secondhand store?
I'm just trying to see where I'm at.
Make sure the cursor is up on the screen. So go.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yep. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
All right. No, I knew I had made it when my book that was inscribed made its way into a secondhand store, and I was like, yes.
It was like it was that really popular one, right?
Yeah, I arrived.
I was supposed to go there on Tuesday, and I was so excited because I had a list of books I wanted to find used. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I had a disagreement, and I stayed home.
So you missed out on...
I missed out on one of my very favorite stores.
Is it the one in Marble?
No. Cedar Park?
Yes. Half price books?
I wasn't going to name them, but yeah, half price books. Because they're a little on the... they're on this side of things. But I love the bookstore.
They sell Bibles and they sell used Christian stuff, so...
All right. So I didn't circle this one because I don't want to talk about it a ton, but the titles. I love the chapter titles.
Oh, thank you.
Especially knowing your personality. You're just not doing it right, the introduction.
Yeah.
I was the best parent I knew of until I had children.
That's correct. There's a story that goes with that.
I love new parents.
Yeah, right?
I was so fortunate because I was actually, I'd parented from 3 up
Okay.
Until Weston was born when Nick was 7. And so then I had like with Weston, the 0 to 3 was new.
Okay.
And difficult. And I was like, I'm not changing diapers. That's women's work. So
how'd that work out for you?
both of my middle children have peed on the back of my head while I was bending over to throw away a diaper. Because we had one of those like smell trapping things. So you push your hand through and then let go.
Yep.
So I was like bending over and it hits me on the head. They like to tell that story, but I beat them to it this time. So yeah, no, I mean you can tell the story behind it if you want, but I wanted to share that because it's.
So so both of our girls are adopted. We'd brought both our girls home so Lydia we brought home first. She was 2.5. Lydia was one of the most chill, even killed girls. And I remember we bring her home. Remember, not from birth, but from like 2.5. Mm-hmm. We bring her home, super chill, and I'm like a month in it, and I'm looking at other parents. I'm like, you guys are all doing it wrong. Like, this parenting thing is easy. Mm-hmm. And we adopted from foster care, like not the easiest of situations, but like super easy. And then we bring Ari home. And there's actually a friend of mine who I had to repent to. I was like,
it's the worst.
Hey, I wanna tell you I'm really sorry for judging you. and so it was just different personalities and different temperaments of kids that I was like, oh, Lydia's easy. Yeah.
So with I had to do that with Chelsea.
Okay.
Because Nick was a handful for me because he was already pretty much spoiled when I showed up. And I made him do things like not sleep in my bed.
Yeah.
That was unsuccessful, by the way. We co-slept for a very long time with all of the kids.
Okay. I'm not a huge fan of that.
The trick is have a big enough bed. In a queen size bed, no fun. King size bed,
I think there's other issues that I have. You don't get to be husband and wife.
And there is some of that.
Yeah.
I think it's probably way more. Let me say that the idea that allowing the child to leave you does make a more independent child.
Yeah. Which I talk about independence.
Yeah, you do.
In the intro.
Anyway.
Is that what we're striving for?
In the correct measure.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah. Appropriately.
Independent from your parents.
Yeah, not codependent.
Not codependent. Yeah. Not failure to launch.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a good one.
I know. I knew you loved that movie.
I love that one.
You're such a girl.
I love rom-coms.
I dig a good rom-com too. Yeah. I'm not a huge that actor fan. Not that I dislike him. Yeah. I'm just like, one or two standouts, but overall, like they're
Safari.
Never watched it.
That one seems like it's right up your alley.
I have never even heard of it. The one I sent you, I still want to watch.
I need to send you Safari.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got Nick. We managed it.
Yeah.
He had to do a lot of uncomfortable things. When he'd go visit my parents, they'd take him camping, and he was like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're doing this."
Yeah.
And I think it was good for him. Weston, happy. So easy to keep him happy. Yeah. He just, eat, do things. Just wants to be with you.
Yeah, he's a quality time guy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And Raylan.
Yeah.
Same way until about 5.
Okay.
And then from 5 on, it was like, God, this woman you gave me. Except it was to Chelsea. It was like, I told you that sass wasn't cute. Mm-hmm. You created this. You handle it.
But, okay, because I have one of those.
Yeah.
I feel like they're doppelganger-ish.
Yeah, eerily so.
For Ari, we never let her, do like
Yeah, I mean,
sass.
it may have happened anyway, but this was definitely encouraged.
Okay. No, I was just gonna add,
Like a lot of her
yeah.
personality now was cute when she was 3
Yeah.
to certain female family members.
Mhm.
And I was like, no. And now I'm just like, she's the one that can make me be like, nope, not quitting this month.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that I love that chapter, and you did tell some good stories here, and people should read it. But we're gonna move on.
All right.
So the way we're gonna do this, because this is the way this other guy did it, and I really liked it, is he read excerpts, and I was like, okay, talk about it.
Okay.
So we're gonna do that.
Awesome.
And hopefully this doesn't turn into a 6-part deal. But you're actually kind of wordy.
I am. You know what? I've just had to land on that's my style.
It's your literary style because it's.
Yep.
I mean, you're wordy when you speak.
Yeah.
But not big words.
When I speak.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends on when I want to throw it out there.
All right. So this is. We're going to be remembering together.
Okay.
Because I read this in circles. It's very late at night. I don't remember. It was all good when I read it.
Okay. Okay.
So this is page 28, which is chapter something.
It should be at the top, right?
Chapter 1, UnLove. There we go. Okay, if we put limitations or expectations on our love, we are denying people the ability to experience the Father's love. To love others as God loves, we must love unconditionally. Kind of repetitive there. This selfless, unconditional love is the denial of ourselves, our right to desires, beliefs, and expectations for the benefits of others. And then you kind of go into like Jesus, but I was specific to that italicized part that this selfless, unconditional love is the denial of ourselves. All right.
Yeah.
So I purposely didn't ask you where you're from because it doesn't matter. But that's kind of a bold opening chapter statement.
What?
That very much like, hey, if this denial of ourselves, our rights, our desires, our beliefs, our expectations for benefit of others.
Yeah.
For the benefit of others. That's really not normal. And because I mean, it's not a self-help book, but it kind of is. I think it gets put there a lot, right?
Yeah. Our ministry in general is kind of like a self-help.
Freedom ministry, right? So, but when you decided to write this, and then ultimately, I mean, there's some lead up to this, and I'm kind of jumping around. Yeah. Loving mean people, I think, was the section heading.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Being loved helps you love. That was the section heading.
Yeah.
But so when you decided to write this book, did you do like a layout, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3? Or did you just write it?
No. So when I wrote this, I laid it out how I developed the Christian living course that we taught at a Bible school that I worked at. And so I'd been teaching semesters or quarters or whatever, but semesters through different things. And I'd already laid out the semesters this way, not with the creative titles or anything like that. It was more academic. And then when I started writing the book, I just kind of used what my class setup was. Okay. Because I knew it was a linear journey. That's what I did know. I had to write linearly, just like the class was linear. And so like you can't get into what are like conflict resolution until you address forgiveness. So I knew forgiveness had to be first, kind of like that. So I knew there was a linear thing to it. And so I modeled it after the class that I taught. And how I developed those is I just kind of basically looked at, okay, I have all these topics. Okay, to do this topic, conflict, well, one needs to know what repentance is. Before we do repentance, one needs to know what forgiveness is. Before I do forgiveness, I need to know what love is. Okay, so it starts with love. So, and that's basically how I developed it. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. This is one of the many resources we make available for free at our website, cultivaterelationships.com. Our resources have helped people grow in their relationship with God and others. We've seen people set free from uncontrollable anger and paralyzing fear. We've witnessed estranged family members be reunited after working through our freedom booklet. We've helped people build healthy relationship and coping habits through our coaching videos. And all of these resources are made available for free because of the generous support of people like you. If you would like to become a partner, please visit cultivaterelationships.com/support. Now, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
Okay, and that's but that's specifically that concept of the denial of ourselves.
Yes.
This is even within Christianity. Yes, that's a super obvious thing.
Yeah.
And you got to deny yourself, follow Jesus. Right?
Yeah, right.
But most people would say, well, you got to forgive yourself. You got to you got to be healed first.
Yeah.
So where did you develop this viewpoint of, well, it's really about others first, and in seeking forgiveness, I'll find healing. I mean, because it's kind of what you get to here.
Yeah. In the Gospels, when Jesus says, "Take up your cross and follow me, deny yourselves, and you be my disciple."
Right.
So let's look at what was the cross. What was the meaning of the cross for Jesus? It was the denial of himself for the benefit of someone else, right? And so I think what often happens is when we look at that passage, take up your cross, it's like, oh, my job, my disease, my, whatever.
My wife.
Yeah.
My husband.
No.
My kids.
No, but like relationally, yeah. No, that's what it actually is people. I think the cross has to have a face to it.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
And it's not my disease. It's not, oh man, I hate changing out tires at the auto shop, or I hate, dealing with the public, unfaced or non-specific public. No, I think our cross it has to be a face. That being said, it is, I am willing to kill myself for the benefit of that person. And I don't mean,
I
mean
to wear yourself out.
Yeah. And I was talking to a guy recently, and he was asking, or he was saying how, he just needs me time. He just needs this. And I go, you're a husband and a father. Do you get me time? Like, is that a right that you have? Mm-hmm. Why? Why is that a right that you have? Which I'm arguing it's not.
It's wonderful. Like right now, this is really kind of me time for both of us.
Yeah.
But if if my wife had said, "Hey, I need you to come home," I would have shot you a text and be like, "Hey, can't do it tonight."
Yep. I have my phone on silence, except for Lacey's the only one that is the exception.
Yeah.
Right? So but that's the thing is, okay, our model, if we're Christians, our model is Jesus. So let's take it to the logical conclusion with no caveats. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is in Christendom, we've been so inundated with the self-help movement that, it's deny myself, but self-care. Yeah, deny myself, but boundaries. Yeah, deny myself, but... And it's like, wait, what if we remove the exceptions? Mm-hmm. That's how a Christian should live.
Yeah.
And
not that we're advocating unsafe relationships.
No. But it's let's stop with the caveat first, and let's go with what does the Bible teach. Then let's address safety. Let's address and Dr. Clown or Townsend and Cloud, they did Boundaries. The Boundary Book. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So he wrote this book on boundaries, on how to have healthy boundaries, and sold, like New York bestseller, sold. And they would do conferences, and immediately people would start out with exceptions, and the exceptions were stupid. And he's like, oh no, we need to rewrite the book or redo a second book on beyond boundaries. And basically going, hey, you have to be in relationship. Boundaries are the exception. They're not the rule. And so they rewrote they wrote a book called Beyond Boundaries.
That's awesome.
Because they realized the deficiency in their first book. Great book. And Lacey's going through it with a lady right now. But what happens in Christianity is we start out with the exceptions. And that statement, I think it's the definition that I have for love, right?
I think it is, yeah.
Is what if we just started off with what the Bible teaches, then let's move on to how to walk that out in a healthy manner. So anyways, that's why it is such a bold statement, I would argue, because I'm defining it how I see Jesus, how he defined it.
Yeah, so that is your definition for unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I remember now why I highlighted it, because what I'm about to read.
Oh, okay.
So in light of that,
yeah.
This is chapter 2, Reset.
Okay.
This is the opening story. So if he does this thing where he tells a little story, and then he expounds upon it. And sometimes it leaves you going, well, what happened next? That sounded like a great story you almost told.
That was an almost story.
This one is a fairly complete story.
Okay.
And I'm not going to read the epilogue to it. I'm just going to read the conflict.
Okay.
So if possible, don't think about the resolution.
Okay.
And I know you have resolved it, which is why I'm willing to read it.
Yeah.
So I had just returned home from spending the weekend in northern Minnesota with my church youth group. It was incredibly refreshing for me to hang out with friends and leaders who made me feel valued. I was exhausted and energized all at the same time. As we pulled up at church, I saw my brother's car waiting to pick me up. Was it Jeremy?
No, it was Josh.
It was Josh, okay.
Yeah.
There was nothing out of the ordinary since my brother and I were close. I got in the car and my brother turned to me and told me that my mom's boyfriend broke into our house and beat my mom's head in with a hammer.
Yeah.
I was numb. She'd already gotten out of the hospital, was staying with a woman's shelter. My brother dropped me off at the house for me to unpack before we went to see her. I remember walking into the room where it had happened and looking up at the ceiling and the walls. Her blood was still there. I felt nothing. I was used to violence by this time in my life. I had already seen my dad kick my mom down the stairs. I recall times I saw my dad hit my brother or when he would pick me up by the throat. I had grown accustomed to the threats of him killing me and my mom or threatening suicide. Or the time my dad said he had a surprise for my mom and me, then proceeded to drive us to a graveyard and show us the plots he had pre-purchased. This was just another ordinary, horrific circumstance in my life. My inability to process trauma came to a head during my first year of Bible college. I was having lunch with one of my teachers, sharing stories of my dad and my lack of trust for pastors since my dad was one, and how I viewed God as some distant punisher rather than a close, caring father. It was about this time when he asked, "Have you forgiven your dad?" The answer was easy. Nope. That's tough to read, let alone to write.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm already tearing up. But you know what's funny is I'm tearing up because I'm thinking of, and this is something Lacey and I were just talking about. When I went to Bible school the first year, dude, I was a shell of a person. Mm-hmm. I like she says that, or she recalls the story of meeting me and coming to shake my hand. She's like, "Hey, I'm Lacey," and I'm like, "I'm Nate," and just kind of like do a limp-wristed handshake, like just a shell of a person.
Right.
And no, I'm crying because I'm like, holy cow, that is traumatic.
That's traumatic.
That's traumatic. And so yeah, I guess what was the question?
There was,
it's
hard.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you experienced it.
Yeah.
And you pretty clearly communicated how you felt then. When you wrote that.
Yeah.
Okay. Was this situation fully resolved?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, by the time I had written the book, relationally, there was most of the relational stories that I share in there, I would argue probably all of them were resolved. What's interesting is I wrote that book during probably one of the darkest depressions that I've ever lived.
That's where I was going next.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I knew the story.
Yeah.
Or some of that story. When I read it the first time, I was like, okay, this tallies with what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know that there was a second man who was a problem.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Remembering that you told me that there was this period, what was it, 2017?
It was 2018 or 19.
2018 or 19, where you were just like, okay, completely unfulfilled in my ministry.
Yep.
Not planning churches, not the next
Furtick or whatever. I don't know.
YouTube pastor.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, in the bottom of your pit, you're like, I'm gonna write I'm gonna write a biographical application book.
Self-help book. No,
It's not self-help. It's,
no,
it's the application of everything you teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're writing this and you tell that story.
Yeah.
In the middle of your depression. How did that? I mean, did you spiral as you're writing this?
No.
Or was it liberating?
No. Here's the thing. Writing the book was an outflow of what we knew relationally worked. Mm-hmm. It had been proven. It had been proven in the classes. Prior to that, it had been proven in mine and Lacey's relationship, and then ongoing even while we were in Bible school. Like I'm saying, the depression had nothing to do with relationships. It was purely a perceived offense against God, that he was not holding up his side of the bargain. Right, my health was tanking, which was kind of the big culminate, or the...
It's when you had your big surgery, right?
Yeah. Emergency surgery. And no, so my depression was purely against the Father. Like, I deserve better. I've been a faithful minister. What is going on? So that was...
I totally get that.
That was that. But relationally, kind of what, to your point with that, is, no, by the time I wrote this book, and honestly, Phil, I don't think I could have or should have written the book if had these relationships not been resolved, or at least the offenses resolved in my heart. What is interesting is I did get permission from everyone in the book, named, unnamed.
That's nice.
I wasn't able to, but no, it's part of it is because it is my story. But yeah.
Okay, so Nate coming home from youth group.
Yeah.
You laid it out there pretty well. You're used to violence. Your first real Bible school was you were, want to be goth, or maybe you were fully goth.
No, I was punk by that time.
You were punk.
Yeah, I was like
the dog collar.
No. I was gothy punk. So like I was wearing like a skater shirt with like a tie, kind of like.
Oh, that's with like a scarf.
Yeah, like that. That was me.
I was so late to that.
And I would paint my fingernails. So
yeah,
black, not like weird.
You didn't just Sharpie them like everybody else.
Weird rim. No, I got like a nice matte black.
I have no doubt.
Yeah, dude, I went all in.
How did that affect you?
The coming home, or
no.
or the what?
Well, both. I mean, obviously you're developing years. You dealt with a lot of trauma from your dad.
Yeah.
And we've talked about. Maybe we've talked about that enough offline that I'm glossing over it now. Horrific experiences.
Right.
But we kind of nailed them in the last podcast a little bit. But what was your coping mechanisms?
Pornography, 100% pornography, and being valued by the youth team. That's where I was at. I was at a youth leaders. Our youth group brought kind of the creme de la creme of the youth team, and I was one of them. And finding my value in that. That's the thing. Like, I had all the markings of like supposedly a good, slightly rebellious Christian. Rebellious enough to make me relatable, but not rebellious enough to be like, so he needs to be kicked off the leadership team.
You're more of Saul than David.
Yeah, right.
You're wearing that mask of righteousness.
Yeah. No, it truly was.
No, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, but I'm being serious.
It truly was. Because I would say I've always had a relationship with God. Very surfacey, even through those years. But I did have one. Like, there's not a time I don't remember praying or going, oh, there's not a God, or any of that kind of dumb rebellion. It's always been, hey, I absolutely believe there's a God, so I know who to blame. You did this.
Okay, I've been there.
Okay.
And I know in anger, I have said, I don't know if he's there or not. It certainly doesn't care about me,
See, and I've never done that. I've always had this faith that he's there. He's just sometimes that's how this is obviously back then, that's how I would.
No, I'm with you.
You're asking me like in the moment. That's how I would say
100%.
it.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Do you ever think, Chelsea and I were talking about David the other day, the biblical character David.
Yeah.
It's the faith, right? Mm-hmm. His absolute security in that, he had no idolatry. I think that's how Michael Heiser sums it up at one point. Is like David's righteousness is his absolute certainty in who God was.
Right.
Do you feel like David to some degree, where it's like, I'm just gonna do this, but I know who you are.
Yeah, like I don't want to compare myself to David. David, I feel like is a great guy.
No,
I mean, he did terrible things.
Yeah,
but like,
he's a murderer.
Let me rephrase it. How God's view of David is one of someone who is fully open and vulnerable before him, and so that's where I'm like, I don't want to compare myself to that. Like,
well, but okay, so,
but yeah, in the way I think you're asking it, where I'm like, I would rather
there was never another God in your mind.
No.
Not money, not sex,
Nope. I knew if I did rebel, I knew exactly what I was doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the point I was getting to.
Yeah.
Not I will absolutely stack myself up against David.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed. I'm just saying, under the Texas Penal Code, he's way worse than I am.
Yeah, right.
But what was your your coping mechanism was pornography.
Yeah.
What was your threshold? Like, was it every little thing drove you there, or was it like you've got to let the pressure build up and then you're gonna run away and do what you're gonna do, or is it like, nope, every day 3:00? I mean, what was you? What?
What's funny is I would say it had gotten to a point. I remember we're kind of fast forwarding in the story, but I remember one of the pastors when I had gone to a strip club when I was a youth pastor. They had asked me, tell me, I know it. There's a whole story, right? Like I just glossed over a ton of stuff.
No, it's fine. I don't even remember if I circled that section.
Okay, but there's it's in the book. It's in the book. But no, I remember one of the pastors asking me like, okay, so how deep is this addiction? Like when you're awake, how many hours would you think of looking at pornography? And I'm like, most. And they're like, okay, let's take an hour. How many minutes in an hour would you want to go look at pornography or be cycling the Rolodex,
right,
if you will? And I'm like, most. Like it
59 and a half,
yeah,
right?
I didn't want to give a number, so I had to keep some cards to myself. No, but it was one of those things where I tell, like, Lacey and I were, I remember a conversation Lacey and I had. We were talking about, think of some of the most debaucherous pornography you could watch. Yeah. And I remember telling her, I go, first of all, I never went there, but I know how someone could. I'll say it that way. You just think of some of the most horrific stuff.
We're good.
And
no visuals needed. We're not drawing for this section.
Yeah, there you go. No, and I told her, I do not judge people who do that because I know how they could get there, for sure.
And I think any man, any woman too, but I can't speak to that. So I don't know any man, because we've talked about this. I think in anyone born where they had internet before high school,
right?
Like I didn't have it when I was young, but I had it before junior high. We had internet, dial up, whatever. Did not take me long
to figure it out.
What I could do with it.
But in high school, my senior year, I worked at a porn shop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like it was one of these like multi
adult stores,
novelty stores.
Yeah.
Well, it was
like a Spencer's.
Yeah, well, they would sell. It's like a private, like it was not a chain, but it was a news store. They would sell newspapers, magazines, videos, cards. They had a whole like trading card area. Like whatever novelty you could think of. But one of those was pornography. And so I had like my senior year, like access galore.
How did you get the job?
I applied.
But like your parents didn't know?
At that point, my mom was just like barely hanging on to herself.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Your dad's
like,
out of the picture.
My dad's out of the picture.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my parents were like, by that time.
But just in my own life, because we've talked about it, like most men have gone through porn. I mean, of course, sitting in this chair, I'm like, I've never been a porn addict. But I was single once, so let's be honest.
Yeah, right.
I think lust, that desire of the flesh is something that everybody lives with. It hits men differently than it hits women. Not that women are unaffected. But I think I was, I think I shared with you pretty early on in our relationship where I was like, I have issues, not immediately thinking, what does she look like naked?
Yeah, right.
Right. That was me. It was, I can't tell you where that came from. But it would be like an actress. Never seen that actress. Oh, I wonder if she's been naked somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And to some degree, it's an academic curiosity. Desensitization, right?
Yeah.
Desensitive.
Desensitization.
Yes.
Yeah.
That word. That's funny though about you working in that shop.
I thought you knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
That's
a revelation to all of us.
Yeah,
Okay, so that was your coping mechanism.
Yeah. And I would say with
were you that guy that was like super judgy when you found out other people had the same problem?
Okay, so let me tell you this. Let me tell you this story. Okay, so I had a friend growing up, and he was just genuinely kind of straight-laced, good guy. Good at school, kind of a nerd. And I remember one time where he was like, "Oh my God," and I was like, "Hey, we do not say, 'Oh my God,' okay?
Oh, yeah.
We do not take the Lord's name in vain."
The Lord's title.
Let's go watch that porn movie we got. Like, that's how, like, that was the duplicity that I had in my life was I had some standards and I would judge others for what they did wrong.
Oh yeah, totally.
If they had a porn addiction, I'd be like, "Oh, dude, totally understand." But so help you if you say, "Oh my God," right?
Because that's blasphemy.
Exactly. We do not take the Lord's name in vain. That's not what it actually means. But anyways.
Yeah.
But no,
This conversation could derail so quickly.
No, but that was the duplicitous lifestyle that I had.
Because you almost have to be holier.
Yeah.
When you're in public, because you're not in private.
Yeah.
So like very pharisaical.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a time, I don't know if we're here yet, but like when I had come back from school, from Bible school the first year, so this is in between first year and second year, they had asked me to do a teaching on purity in the youth group that I had grown up with.
I don't think that's in the book.
No, it's not in the book.
Okay. Perfect. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember that day making out, doing stuff with a girl. And as I was preparing for this purity talk, this is how duplicitous I was, okay?
All right, so we've established that you were bad.
Yeah. So, and I vividly remember, so then that night, I give the talk at youth group, and as I'm giving the talk, I hear this. "So this is how you're going to be." And I was like, first of all, I had rarely heard God's voice, right? And I was like, as I'm teaching, I'm also having now this dialogue going like, wait, what do you mean? No. This is exactly how your dad was. I'm just double checking. This is how you're going to be. And I'm like, right, you brought up the dad card. Like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to be like...
How dare you?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to be like my dad.
Have I hit anybody lately?
Right?
Lately?
Yeah, right? I'm like, I haven't done this, I haven't done this, I haven't done this. And he's like, no, as long as we're being clear, you are being a hypocrite. You're doing this in public, but in private, you do this.
Right.
And I'm like, No. Like, it was a moment of, if you're charismatic, I was baptized in the Spirit. If you're Baptist, I finally got saved. I don't know. Like, whatever, wherever you land, that night, I vividly remember going, this is not how I want to live.
Right.
I do not want to be like my dad in the way of how he portrayed himself in public versus who he was in private.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those literal come to Jesus moments, where like from that day forward, I think I've said this, where like from that time forward, I enjoyed reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was a terrible reader at this point, still am. That's why I don't do novels. I'm like, if I'm going to put brain energy.
Be like the rest of us and make up what the word means in your head. All right.
It just,
when you encounter that, I'd love, okay. There's a book series called The Wheel of Time.
okay.
And they made a couple seasons of a show for Amazon. I've never watched it because I'm just not going to walk through that despair again. 14 years of my life, Nathan.
Oh.
There's 16 books.
No.
But they were only on book 7 when I started reading them.
Yeah.
And he died before he finished the last book. But he'd written like all the important parts, and this other guy had to fill it in.
Oh, okay.
But you could tell. But anyway, so like, I read the first 4 books.
Yeah.
And then he's got all these like, he liked Asian names. So Indian names, Chinese, Korean. And then he would kind of like westernize them.
Okay.
And so I had I knew how these names sounded because I'd read them.
Of course.
And then I got an audio version and I'm like,
they're saying it wrong.
This is terrible. I'm not going to be able to listen to all these. And I did it anyway, but
no, it was, so that night forward, I don't know if my spiritual gift is reading really boring theological books. But that's like a gift I have, is I can devour a reference book. But if you give me Lord of the Rings or a novel, I'm like, the Lord. Like it.
You should know that one.
No, you know what I mean, though. Yeah, right. It's biblical. No, but that it's legitimately that way.
Okay. So I don't want to get too much of the happiness right now. We're gonna get there.
Depression.
What though? That was my next question.
Yes.
What was your mental health like?
I hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. This discussion will be continued in our next episode, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.